Hi everyone, this is Tommy from Studio Ultra Mega with another Operation Battle Ready tutorial. Episode 21, Spectral Glow. Here's a rundown of the colors that we're using today, and they will also be listed in the video description. And to all the Infinity players in the crowd, this method also precisely works for doing TO Camo, and I'll be showing you that on some models for Infinity very soon. We start by laying down some forest green over all of the raised areas on the model. Basically everything except for the very concave parts of the drapery or under hoods or folds. The painting technique I'm using today is layered highlighting. Briefly, it's using progressively brighter, thin, translucent layers to create highlighting effects. We cover that in almost every tutorial we've created, and that's not really why this model looks the way it does. Wet blending will work just fine. Any of the techniques that you guys like to use will work just fine. This look is more about the approach. And as you see, as I start to build up here, I add in a little bit of the next brightest color into the color I just used. In this case, I'm mixing a little Boreal green in with the forest green. I never make a transition directly from one color to another. I always need at least one step in there, if not 3 or 4, of varying ratios of a mix between the colors involved. But again, really what's unusual with this effect is the approach. As I start the model, it's fairly straightforward. It looks like just about anyone else that would be doing layered highlights on a model like this. But as we continue on, and you'll see me bounce around, and that's because I'm literally going to what catches my eye. Some areas get neglected till all the way to the end as I focus on others, and it's really kind of key to making sure that you don't end up with like typical looking patterns or anything. You want this thing to look spectral, like a slow motion flickering undead flame, right? So yeah, I'm still hitting highlights. You know, I'm not putting highlights where there should be none, but I'm focusing on interesting areas on the piece. The big key point of the shoulder there, the forearm stretched out, and various licks of flame. Any holes, I concentrate a lot on holes in the fabric, and you'll see that as this progresses. Yeah, you want to keep your blends smooth, whatever method you're doing, because you're going to be building up a lot of layers. If you're wet blending, just proceed with caution. Try not to overload things too much. As I go through all these highlights, you'll see me dip back into the dark colors and hit the black back into crevices and stuff like you're seeing me do right now. I'm always paying attention to the structure of the figure. So as I build up these highlights, when I see something that should be dark end up looking a little too bright, I'll fix it right away. I want every area to be appealing right where I've got it, so I don't wait to the end to do corrections in this method. I see something I don't like, I change it the second I see it. So I'll go back and forth between doing a bright color and a really dark one. Just, you know, make sure your brush is good and clean. Just a quick shout out here to the Age of Sigmar fan network on Facebook, which is where I believe I stole this idea to gouge out the heads of the Grimghast Reapers. It makes them spookier somehow, and but that idea was not mine. It was totally stolen. If you're the guy that came up with it, drop me a line and I'll throw you in the notes here. And as the highlights get brighter, you see I'm starting to pull mint green into the boreal green. Right now it's still mostly boreal green, just a little bit of mint in it. And you could use any colors for this process, by the way. I mean, this particular green I've chosen because it's really night haunty to me. You know, it's that simple. But you could do this with pure blues. You could do this with purples. You could do this with pure true greens. You could do it with red. It'd end up with some crazy blood elemental looking thing. I have not tried it myself, but I'm going to now that I've just said it. But for the night haunt here, yeah, I like the boreal green is a real bluish green. The forest green has a lot of blue in it. And of course that beautiful Reaper mint green is key to the whole thing. It takes very little of that to start to brighten up this boreal green, as you can see. Now, one thing that's really important to keep in mind is those edges have to stay crisp. For this effect to work, and actually for most effects to work, right, you really want your edges to be well defined and to pop. So you want to make sure that you've got your edge highlighting down. I've heard online recently some people discussing some problems with it, so let me address that real quick. If you're having trouble keeping that nice, fine, clean line on your edges, your paint's just too thick. It's that simple. People who say they've thinned their paint and then tend to lose control of it, your brush is loaded too much. What you can't see in the camera shot here is off to the right is I have a damp paper towel. And if I dip into my paints on my wet palette and I feel I've got a little too much, I just go and roll the tip on that wet paper towel a little bit to get the perfect brush load. See, now you can start to see areas that I'm favoring on the model as I continually add little bits of mint green into the boreal green to brighten my highlights. I start to leave areas behind while focusing on others. And that creates the weird effect of the spectral glow. So here I'm trying to bring out a lot of the pop on the little flamey parts of his, the tail end of his spectral form here. And really this color scheme came out of being from just the nature of the sculpts. I work a lot with Corvus Belli's Infinity line, which are some of the most beautiful, realistic sculpts on the market today. And anytime you finish an Infinity model, it's a great sense of accomplishment, and you really get to flex your muscles on all your skills on an Infinity model. But then when you get to come over to a Games Workshop model, it's like a carnival ride. And I just wanted to like slide down these swooping ramp-like drapes and these robes, and you know, after painting 1,000 assault rifles, this is exactly like a carnival ride. So as you're picking out these interesting areas, just enjoy the contours of the model. I never work against them, you'll notice. Well, there's an exception to that, but that's for an upcoming tutorial. But I'm not working against any of the contours here. I'm playing with them. I'm making them pop. I'm bringing them out. You're holding the Games Workshop model in your hand. You're holding one of the most animated, beautiful, cartoonish looking models in the world. Have fun with it. Now the mixes I'm doing don't really have a steady ratio. You see on my wet palette, I'm kind of adjusting them constantly to whatever I'm doing. If I lay something down, it's a little bright while it's still wet, I'll move over, fix the mix a little bit, and come back and blend it in. Because the same ratios don't work everywhere. But at this point, the highest points, I'm working at about 2/3 mint, 1/3 boreal green is approximately the ratio at the end here. You can really see now where all the corners and tips and focal points that I've kind of randomly chosen to, I won't say random, but they certainly aren't following any rules. They're just interesting parts of the model to me. Things that stick out, things that your eye wants to go to. But how these gradually gradient highlights have made those areas pop almost supernaturally. And here we are with a very eldritch spirit. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons at Patreon that make these tutorials possible. We wouldn't be able to do this without your support. And as always, please do not forget to like and subscribe. That's how we know you love us.